Hey everybody, it's Hayden here from Top Dog Tutoring. I hope you are well today. Now, if you're here because you're looking for some 11 plus preparation, for example, the Kent 11 plus or the Birmingham one or any other UK 11 plus, then the chances are you're going to do some non-verbal reasoning, right? Non-verbal reasoning is the one with patterns and shapes and figures and all that good stuff. They can be quite fun, but they can be quite hard as well. Well, listen, there's an acronym called SCANS. SCANS, all right? That is really helpful with non-verbal reasoning because each letter stands for something super important that you should look for when you are solving non-verbal reasoning questions, right? So what we're going to do in this video is take a look at SCANS, show you some examples, go through what each of the different letters means, and hopefully by the end of the video, maybe you can learn it. You can also download it in the link in the description as well as a little cheat sheet just to help you solve questions in the future. So let's jump straight in then to the first question. So with this first question, in fact, two questions I've got on the screen now, we're going to look at the first S in SCANS, which you can see here, which stands for shape. This is probably the most important one, the biggest one, the one that you will use the most often in these questions, all right? So let's read through some of these bullet points first. When we're thinking of shape and any kind of non-verbal question, whether it's this one here, which is most alike, you're trying to find the one that's most alike the one on the left, or whether you're trying to do an odd one out question or something else, right? These are the questions you should be thinking in your head in order to spot the patterns or spot the features that are changing or the important things that you need to solve the question, right? So the first question is, are all of the shapes the same type? That could mean perhaps, you know, they all have to be triangles in a certain question. They all have to be four-sided shapes. Are they all the same type? Is that an important thing? Well, in this one here, look, we've actually got triangles and circles. So it kind of is important because clearly, I'm drawing all over it now, because clearly triangles and circles is what we need to be in this group. So in E, where we've got squares, I can say that's probably not going to be something that would be in that group because actually it's not the right type of shape. Then we've got some other points here which we'll look at and then we'll have a go at these questions. Are any of the shapes overlapped in any way? All right, you can see a bit of overlapping in here. Does it matter, overlapping, or does it not? Do the shapes have any lines of symmetry? That's a really classic one, and people forget that one. They often don't notice when there's some sort of symmetry involved in the question. Have any of the shapes moved into new positions? So if you're doing like a transformation question or a grids question, then it might be that shapes have moved in a particular way that you've got to notice. Rotation's another big one. Have any shapes rotated and turned around? If so, like how much by? Is it just a 90-degree rotation? Is that what you're looking for? And finally, is the shape's border changing in any way? Sometimes the border will change to like a dotted line or have a double line or it'll be a thick line, something like that. So let's just have a look at these two questions where shape is quite a heavy element of being able to solve it, all right? So we've already started looking at the whole are the shapes the same type thing. Overlapping is the next thing. I noticed that in this first figure here, they overlap, and this one they don't overlap at all, and this one they just kind of overlap a little bit. So I can safely say to myself, well, overlapping clearly doesn't matter when we're trying to solve this most alike question. It doesn't seem to matter if it's overlapped or not. So now I know what not to worry about, all right? I'm not worried about the overlapping. The next one is symmetry. I don't think from looking at this that symmetry has anything to do with it. We're not making any kind of symmetrical patterns, and it's all the same triangles and circles anyway, which we know are symmetrical. So it's not really helping us here. Have any of the shapes moved into new positions? Well, yeah, some of them have. Some of the shapes are moved around. We've got a circle with the triangle inside, or we've got a circle kind of to the side of here. So the shapes are in different positions. All that seems to matter when we go through these questions is this first one. Are the shapes the same type? Yeah. We've got two triangles and a circle. Two triangles and a circle, two triangles and a circle. That seems to be the only thing that matters. The size of the shape doesn't seem to matter at all, which we'll get into in a minute. So let's find the one that fits it. Two triangles and a circle. 2T and a circle. That makes no sense. Here we go. One triangle, two circles. No. Two triangles and a square. No. Two triangles, two circles. No. Two triangles and a circle. Yes. Didn't matter they overlapped. Didn't matter about the size. Didn't matter where they were. Didn't matter about the rotation. But having these things in my head, once I've practiced them and learned them, it just helps me solve these questions real quick. Let's look at the next one. This is an odd one out. So we're looking for something where four are the same in some sort of way and one of them's different. Okay. Are the shapes the same type? No, they're all different. All right. Are any of the shapes overlapped? No, there's no overlapping. Any symmetry? Well, yeah, kind of, but they all have symmetry. All of these shapes are symmetrical. So it doesn't really help us. If one wasn't, then maybe it'd be the odd one out. The rotation doesn't matter because we don't really know. There's not four that are rotated in the same way. That doesn't really make sense for this question. Is the border changing in some way? Let's look at the border. They've all got a solid border with a dotted inside. When I was looking at the dotted inside, I noticed that this is the only one that has one dotted shape all the way through. All of the other ones have two little dotted shapes on the inside. So there we go. I found the odd one out, and it was something to do with the kind of border of that inside shape, and that made me realize that actually there were two shapes in these ones and only one in this one. Therefore, it's the odd one out. So anyway, that's the S, the first S in scans. It stands for shape, and it's just encouraging you to look at the shape and think about how the shapes are changing and interacting. The C in scan stands for color, and this one's a lot more straightforward. There's only 4 bullet points here. Is there a pattern in the color or shading? For example, in this first question, is there a pattern going around this figure? Does it always go black, grey, white, and then sort of the lines? Is that how it works? Has it flipped or changed positions? Sometimes they just swap the positions of bits of shading, and you've got to notice that. Has it changed altogether? Maybe like in a transformation question, like a grey bit of shading might become a black bit of shading, and you've just got to know that that's the transformation, which we'll look at in a minute because there's a transformation question there. And finally, have the different objects swapped their colours or shading? So sometimes, like in this one down here, you can actually see straight away the triangle and the kind of arrowy shape, they swap their shading. The one that was black is now white, and the one that was white is now black. So these are the questions you should be thinking of with color if you want to notice all of the things that are happening. Let's take a look at these questions. In this odd one out question, let's try and find which one's odd one out. So it's nothing to do with the shape stuff from the last thing, because it's all the same shape, and 2 of them are rotated in one way, 3 of them in another way, so we don't get any odd ones out from that. It must be something else. Maybe it's the pattern of the like the order of the shading. So in this one it goes, if I'm going clockwise around the star figure, I don't know, then it goes black, grey, white lines. Let's try this one. Black, grey, white lines. Black, grey, white lines. Black, grey, white lines. Black, grey, lines, white. Haha! E is the odd one out, because when going around clockwise, looking at the order of the shading that we had, starting with black every time, the other 4 went black, grey, white, and then lines. But this one went black, grey, lines, and then white. So the lines and the white part had been switched. Found the answer. There we go. In the second one, we've got some different elements of color here changing alongside other things like shape as well. But let's just focus on the color. I noticed that the black triangle becomes a white triangle. It's also rotated. So thinking of shape as well now. I'm starting to build up my knowledge of scans. So the first thing here is I know that the little C shape, little half U shape, I guess, is going to switch shading with the other one. So I'm going to have a white shaded CU thing. I don't know why I can't think of a name for this semicircle donut. Half a donut. It's half a donut. That's what it will forever be called. So not a grey one. This one can't be the answer. This one can't be the answer. It's going to be one of these 3. And then we have to revert back to our knowledge of shape to work out which one it's going to be here, thinking about the rotation. Well, in our original one, clearly the large shape on the bottom turns upside down. So it's not going to be this one. It hasn't turned upside down. And now the only difference is the inside shape. Did that switch around it as well? Well, yes, it did. The arrow was pointing down. Now it's pointing up. So our half donut had the top half eaten. If it turns around, it will look like this one, where the bottom half has been eaten. I like making it about donuts. So there you go. There's C, color. Let's move on to the A. Angle is the next thing to think about. You've thought about shape. You've thought about color. Maybe you're still looking for something. Maybe it's angle. So here are some questions to ask yourself. Are all of the interior angles of the shapes the same? I'll come back to that one. How do objects create angles when they interact? Sometimes lines will cross over each other and they'll make certain angles, and that might be the thing that you're looking for. Does it help to look from different angles? Perhaps, with rotation questions, maybe just turning your head or turning the paper might actually give you a new perspective, and you'll spot that maybe something's been flipped and it hasn't just been rotated. And finally, are there any mirror images? So it kind of links to the reflection one. It's the same point, really. It's just another way of thinking about reflection. So let's have a look at how angle is important here. So I noticed with this one, I've combined angle with rotation here, right? So I noticed that we had this kind of 45-degree angle, if it's facing that way, turning into this kind of horizontal. So it's rotated around in this transformation. But like understanding things like 45 degrees or 180 degrees or 90 degrees, like understanding those kind of that terminology can be really helpful when you're trying to describe to yourself what's happening, what's changing. All right, that's all I'm going to say about that one. The second one is really important to me. This is one of my favorite questions that we have in our mock test, and a lot of children struggle with this. And it goes to this first one here. Are all of the interior angles of the shape the same? So you're looking for an odd one out here. Have a look for a second. Pause the video if you want. There's an odd one out. Which shape is the odd one out? Most people get this wrong. I'm going to reveal to you the answer. Are you ready? Right. Here is the thing that is happening in all of the shapes but one. There's a right angle. There's a right angle. There's a right angle. there's a right angle. There's no right angles in A. So there you go. That just proves that looking at angles is worth it. And I'm telling you right now, this is one of our least correctly answered questions that we've ever made. So clearly angles is something people don't think about, but you will with scans. So we've got shape, we've got color, we've got angles, and now we're looking at number. This is another really big one. Pay attention to the number of sides on a shape. So often in nonverbal reasoning questions is the number of sides in the shape important for some reason, whether it's related to something else within the figure, like in this first question here. The way to solve it and the way to find the odd one out is about the relationship between the number of sides and the number of dots within each figure. Okay, for example, I'll show you right now. This first shape has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sides, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 dots. Okay, this is important. The next one has 3 sides, but only 2 dots. So something's going on here. This one has 1 more dot than it needs. This one has than sides, and this one has 1 less dot, 1 fewer dots. Sorry, Dylan would be really cross at me right now. Or is it 1 less? Oh man, Dylan, I hope you're not watching this video. Moving on quick before he notices. This next one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dots. Okay, so clearly it looks like this is going to be the odd one out here for having 1 more dot. And I can confirm that if you went through this, you would find exactly that. All of these 4 here, they have 1 less dot. I'm going to keep using less and fewer. 1 less, fewer dot than sides, whereas the first one has 1 more. So there we go. Number was really important. What else can we look at and think about? Well, how many objects are there in total? That might be important. How many times do the objects overlap? That's a really big one. I wish I'd put in a question to show you that, but I haven't got one of those. But sometimes that's important, like the amount of times they overlap might be the key to unlocking the answer. And finally, is the amount of objects increasing or decreasing, like in this last question here? So in this sequence question, where we're looking for patterns, you'll notice that if we look at the sequence backwards, we start with 5 black dots, 4 squares, sorry, not dots, 5 squares, 4 squares, 3 squares, 2 squares. So you know there's going to be 1 black square, and it's reducing in that order. So in that way, so it'll be the corner one. And with the white squares, it's going 4, 3, 2, 1. So in this one, we're going to have no white squares, revealing to me that the answer is actually just C. So understanding the number element of this question was really important, whereas shape and color weren't so important, other than understanding the difference between black and white. It was all about number, right? So there we are. We've got scans so far. We've got another S to finish our acronym scans. Let's check it out. Size is the last one. Do objects share the same or different sizes? Now, I kind of mentioned size back in shape, didn't I? And I tried to gloss over it quickly because I knew it was coming up later. And it's nice and simple. It really is exactly what it says, size. Is there any difference in the size? Has it increased or decreased? Is the size related to another figure important, perhaps? Well, look at this grids question. In this question, quite clearly what's going on is, as well as a bit of shapes and rotation here, the shape that's on the left-hand side, the size dramatically changes when it becomes this right-hand side one. For example, this oval figure gets a lot bigger, but this kind of arrowy figure gets a lot smaller. And that's key to unlocking how to solve this question. What else happens? Well, they also, they flip the way they are as well. For example, the black dot is looking left, then it's looking right this way. But that's what you'd need to solve this question. And the same in the next one as well. We've got some sizes of the lines, which is really important. You quite often get this pattern of like a small thing, a medium thing, a large thing. That's really common in non-verbal reasoning questions. So in the top one, we've got a small line. In the second one, we've got a long line, and then we've got 2 medium lines. And that shows to me that there's going to be some sort of code, which is represented by these middle letters here. L clearly represents a small line, M represents a long line, and the N, which is the same, represents the medium-sized line. So the size was really important. It does actually reveal to me that if I'm trying to work out my 3-letter code, the middle letter is going to be M because of this long line here. We might be able to get rid of some answers as we go, blah, 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 blah. So combining all of this together is how we get really good at solving non-verbal reasoning questions. Use scans, learn what each of the letters mean, and just kind of run through those words in your head when you're solving questions. I promise you, you will find these 10 times easier in the long run. So I'm going to end the video there. If you enjoyed this and you feel like this will be helpful, we've actually made the little help sheet here. It's all put together. You can download it, you can print it, you can make it massive, put it on your wall, get rid of all the other, other things on your wall because that's so not interesting. But, get a massive scans poster up there. That'd be pretty cool. So download it in the description. Thank you for tuning in. Let me know in the comments, was it useful? Are you going to use any of these tips, or have you just listened to me waffle for 10 minutes and just thought, yeah, it'll be fun to listen to? I don't know. See you next time, guys.